Yeah, okay, so...
Oh, is it so?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Jien. My pronouns are they, them. I am the Education and Training Officer of Glitter Cymru. I am from Malaysia, but I'm currently based in Cardiff.
I'm Arianne, queer, black, sort of half Ghanaian, half Bayesian, but I was born in the UK.
Hi everyone, my name is Rahim al-Habashi and my pronouns are he, him. I am part of Glitter Cymru's committee, and my role in the committee is to amplify the voices of queer artists.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am new blood in the Glitter Committee. I am one of the training and education officers.
Okay, I guess what we're here for today is we've got some awesome questions about the experiences, particularly that POC might have, especially if they're queer as well, and just lots of questions that people don't know where to get answers for otherwise. So we're just going to go through some of these and see if we can help you out and just discuss what we think some of the answers might be with our personal experience. So
We try our best. Okay.
yeah, we're only experts because of the lives we live. So
yeah, absolutely.
we'll do what we can. Is it okay to ask, not where are you really from, but where are you from originally, only if it's obvious here is not your birth country? So, I mean, for that, I feel like it's really, why are you asking that?
Mm-hmm.
What are your intentions? Does phrasing it in a different way really make a difference to what you're actually trying to get at? And why is it so important for you to be able to put someone in whatever specific box you want to put them in? So yeah, for me, I don't really think there's many situations where it's really okay to ask that if you are clearly also not foreign. Whereas if you're asking someone because it's something you might have in common, that's different. If you're oh, I'm an immigrant, and it's come up in conversation as well, and it's oh, where are you from? And you've got an accent, and then you might be oh, our countries are next door neighbours, or something like that, or you can see that they're wearing something you recognise from your culture even, and you're oh, where did you get that? And then you're just oh yeah, I have one as well, but it's at home. That sort of makes sense. But if you've met someone randomly, or you're just talking to them randomly, and then you're just so where are you originally from? Or where were your parents born?
Oh, yeah.
It's just really out of place, and it's really weird.
I have an incident that I can remember. I think that was several months ago during winter. I was out. Okay, so this is really crazy because there was a bunch of white people sitting behind me. I was with a friend, and my friend left, and I was just basically standing there alone at a bar, drinking. And minutes after, there was this white, older man who came up to me and asked, "So, I just wanted to ask, so me and my friends over there behind you have been trying to guess where you're from. So, he guessed Korea, he guessed China, he guessed Thailand. So, where you really from?" I'm am I really being put on a spot to tell you where I'm actually from? I mean, they're literally taking this as a game?
Yeah.
And I was why? Would you do that to another white person that comes in and imagine I was replaced by a white person that came in, standing there drinking. Would that happen to that specific white person? But somehow I walked into the room, I conjured different sentiments in them.
It reminds me, I know this is a lot of this, but it reminds me of an incident a couple years ago. Since moving to Wales, it's actually, I get asked a lot, where am I from? But Welsh people usually mean it because I have an English accent. They actually want to know what part of the country, what part of the UK I'm from, rather than asking me because of my skin colour. It's something I really had to get used to, losing the defensiveness when I hear that question. Because when I say, oh, I'm from the Midlands, that's actually the answer they were after. So that's why I was so shocked when someone asked me, and I said, oh yeah, I'm from the Midlands. And then he was no, where are you from? And I was oh, you're one of those. And we were really uncomfortably close to my flat, and I'm like, if I piss this guy off, he knows where I live. Like, I don't want to answer you. And I kept giving excuses and kept being like, oh, this is the specific hospital in which I was born. Is that what you're after? And he got really like irate. And then he was just like, look, I just want to know, because I do work with kids in like Sierra Leone and Kenya. So I just wanted to know if you had a connection to those places. And I was like, if that was true, you would have asked me if I was from Sierra Leone or Kenya. Like,
That's a
much easier question to ask. So, yeah, I just don't do it.
No.
I think I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it. And I had a conversation with people who've been born here. I was not born here. I'm a refugee here. So I have an accent. I have a different identity. There's a lot of things that I don't know about British culture. So that curiosity and asking, and what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Push people to, it's obvious that people is curious to know where I am from originally. So I don't have a problem with it. And I'm Moroccan, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm not British, I'm Moroccan. You know what I mean? I don't have the dual citizenship yet. Maybe in 3 years, then maybe my answer will change. But now I don't. I love my country, and I love my original country, and I love Wales, where I live now. So I don't have a problem with it. In different ways, a lot of people who were born here and their parents actually also were born here have problem with that word. Where are you from? Or actually, where are you actually from? They have a lot of problem with that, with that word, and it's like microaggression.
Yeah.
And also it's like you will never belong here no matter what you do, and people who you look like are not from this country.
Yeah.
Although like black people and South Asian people and Asian people and this part of the world, they inhabited for thousands of years,
Exactly.
not even hundreds of
We
years.
all come from Africa, newsflash.
No, that's true, but yeah, it's a tricky thing. I mean, if you hear like a thick accent, like a French accent or something like that, I don't think it's a problem, to be honest with you. But if you hear somebody speaking like fluent English and with that English accent or British accent, I mean, just be mindful. I don't know.
I have an accent. I will never lose my accent.
Do you get offended when someone asks you when you're actually where you're from?
Yes, I've become offended at that. Mostly because once I'm asked, when I give the first answer is not enough. And then when it continues after that, like if you ask me where I'm from, I would say London, because that's where I spent most of my adult life. That's home. That's what I consider home. But that will not be enough of a good answer for them, because my accent says something different.
Yeah.
And so there will be that digging. And because of what I do in life, and most of the time was partially educational stuff, partially like video essays and that kind of thing. So what I say should be what people focus on rather than how I say it.
Do you know what I say? What is your accent from?
And that would be acceptable.
Do you know what I say that all
Like,
the time? What is your accent from?
at
Oh my
the-
god, where's your accent from?
I guess
Someone said to me Irish, and I was like, oh. I was not expecting that. You know what I
Fair.
mean? I thought it was Scottish or something
Fair
like that.
enough.
You know what I mean?
Dreadlocks on a white person. Is it ever okay?
So I feel like I should give a lot of intro and nuance and reasons, but I'm just going to start off with like personally, no. Personally, I get really uncomfortable when I see any white person with dreadlocks. So straight away it just puts you in a space in my head of like you're not respectful of other people's cultures and like where those lines are. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. You know, there's multiple cultural heritages that have dreadlocks. It's not even just black people. Like in Sikhism you sort of see locks. But even the very name of it, even the fact that white people always call them dreadlocks, and it's like, we don't know exactly where that term came from, but there is definitely strong evidence to suggest that it came from white people seeing people with dreadlocks, people of colour obviously, and seeing their hair and thinking it was dreadful and looked horrible, and just calling it dreadlocks, like their hair is literally dreadful. But what it comes down to, and why I think it's actually harmful, not just distasteful, but just like really unfair and harmful, is that I get discriminated against for my hair. Like, I have to do things with my hair, hide my hair, wear a wig, to do job interviews and get taken seriously because people look at me and the colour I am and the hair I have and will just be like, you know, you're a druggie or whatever other stereotypes they have. And white people with locks, they get like a little bit of that, but not nearly so much. And I don't think it's fair for people to use something as just a fashion accessory and not have any of the negative, or nearly as many of the negative consequences which come with that, and like they get to like benefit and just have all these cool things, and people who have a real significance and want to practice their culture can't do it without it changing how they move through the world. I'm like, no, it's not that important, it's just not that deep for you, so no, don't do it.
Don't do it. How do I make sure I'm listening to non-white noises when I try to learn more about other cultures?
I'll just give a like short note on this, which is just that I think everybody knows at least a bit about this because of AI now, but the way that algorithms and the internet and everything like that prioritize things is based on what is the most important and what is historically seen as the most common. And that means, whether intentionally or not, that white voices get brought to the front. If 10 people are talking about this topic, the algorithm will be like, oh, people click more often on videos that have like a white face on them, so that's the one they're going to show you. So if you're looking for anything on any subject in the world and you think it's more appropriate to hear from people of colour, you're just going to have to wade through the results. You're going to have to be really specific with your search terms, ask for recommendations, and even if you just find a few people to follow just to prove to the algorithm that you're interested in different kinds of voices, it will start giving you more relevant results as well. So there's no quick fix, I'm afraid, but like the resources are out there.
I'll use a dreadlock example that you were going through the internet and you were trying to...
Yeah, I did my own starter locks. You can probably tell they're kind of a mess. It took me ages to find anything with black people actually starting locks and not just resources by white people on how to start it. And the techniques are different, the textures are different, like it's completely irrelevant to me, but even the culture that's like invented it is getting suppressed because they're not seen as relevant. So yeah, it can be difficult, but you learn what keywords you can use.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I'm gonna give you an example as well. I was in London and I was looking for, London is known to have different kind of food, better food. I don't want to shame Cardiff, but so I want to go to London and try their Korean food. So I typed in best Korean food near me in English. And I looked through all of the options that I was presented with. 5 star. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, I have tried one of those before and I did not necessarily like them because it didn't taste authentic. And I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna switch this up a little because I feel like I'm not really getting the answer that I want, because those reviews were probably, given by white people with no, what do you call it? Palette. A good set of palette. So I typed it in Korean instead, and I instantly got one place, and I went over, and it was the best Korean food that I've had. So we have to find our ways to get to what we want.
My dad is a white man who has recently been interested in converting to Islam, but seems specifically fixated on anti-LGBTQ laws in Islam. I know this doesn't actually reflect all Muslims or their attitudes on queer people, but I feel I don't know enough or have the right to debate with him on this, as I unfortunately know very little of Islam or Muslim communities. Is it true that trans, gay and other queer identities are considered badly in the Quran, or is it a matter of translation, interpretation, etc.?
Well, I think as a Muslim and someone who grew up in Islam, I think there is the bad and the good, and I think if you're looking for the bad, you're going to find the bad, and if you're looking for the good, you're going to find the good. And it's a matter of interpretation as well, but there is a lot of scholars who are queer or not queer, but also like open-minded and trying to like do a lot of research about the matter, have denounced the idea of like queerness is bad or forbidden in Islam. There is an imam called Ludovic. I forgot his, Ludovic Mohammed, and I think he's from Algerian heritage, and he is a queer imam who speaks openly about his queerness and about his discovery of queerness and linking it to Islam and his struggles with both religion and queerness as well. I think that's a good resource for you to look for. Yes, and I think every time we speak about queerness, there is always the Sodom and Gomorrah, whether in the Bible or whether in the Quran, which people are always referencing to say that, oh, actually, Lot as a prophet and Lot's people have been like buried alive and cursed and what have you because of the of homosexuality. But a lot of scholars have also openly denounced that, and they said that actually the reason that they were punished by God is for their corruption, is for the rape, is for a lot of other reasons. So again, if you want to look for the bad in anything, actually, you're gonna find the bad, and if you want to look for the good, you're gonna look for the good. And also, like, every religion is very individual, and every practice of religion is actually individual. So it's up to your father or to your dad to be the human he wants to be, and the reflection of Islam he wants it to be.
You covered that. I have no notes. Something that I think I prepared myself before going to the workshop, because I was raised Catholic, but not particularly hardcore, and I'm no longer following any Abrahamic religion. And I was like, oh, if I'm gonna get a religion question, I don't know what to say. And something interesting was, well, you know, there is extremism in Christianity as well, but we do not consider it as much, which is bizarre, because in America it's affecting actual law.
Yeah, it's affecting law.
But yet we do not have the same preconcepts about how negative Christianity is.
I mean, while we speak now, there is a big marches in Canada from both Muslims and Christians and other religious faiths opposing the law to educate LGBT education, to include LGBT
education in
schools, and it's from all backgrounds. And of course, the media is only focusing about veiled women and women with hijab and all that, but it's like, it's unfortunate. Unfortunately,
I think there's something also that my wife read about and then I've learned about, which is called recent convert syndrome or something like that, which is basically when you get into something new that you know you don't belong to, you want to go 110% because you want to show them how much of a good one you are.
Yes.
And if you think about it, it can extend to a lot of people that we have in government, like Suella Braverman.
Oh my God, absolutely!
Is that kind of girl. Like, she's like, I'm a person of color, but if I treat people of color shittingly, the Tories will love me. And Thatcher was doing the same thing. Like, if I behave worse than a man, harder than a man, I will join the boys' club.
Oh my God, absolutely!
So, there's also that kind of shit.
It's part of a research that I'm doing actually as well. Yeah, so it's, again, it goes back to the individual and how they want to take any new religion or a new culture or a new or any new hobby. Yes.
Yeah, and how, the same way that Jen said in the previous question that we answered, at the end of the day, it's about how decent of a person you want to be.
Yeah.
Are there reasons other than religion for homophobia in minority groups? Deep.
Oh yeah, societal norms to begin with. I think there are. I'm not from a religious, or from a Abrahamic religion standpoint. I'm not from a religious family. We are very spiritual, but of course there's superphobia or transphobia within the family, and that is largely based on societal norm. You know, someone that acts outside of the norm they're seen as the deviant, and I'm obviously the deviant here. Then I transcended and became a diva, but but yeah, societal norms. Yeah, that's from my perspective. How about you?
Yeah, I just want to add, because I think you covered it perfectly, but I just want to add that some of the reasons for those societal norms, especially in ethnic minority groups, are because of colonialism. So, like, for example, if you look at West African history, there's a long history of gender expression and you being seen as a more spiritual person and a wise person, a medicine person, if you are what we'd probably understand in modern terms to be trans, for example. They'd be like, oh, you actually, if you're like trans or non-binary, you actually have a connection to masculinity and femininity, so you have a broader world view, and then you would be trusted with more things. And then the British or the Dutch or whichever specific flavour of colonialism came and was like, no, actually this is what's normal. Those things aren't normal. We're going to train you and have rewards and punishment for you to make your society look more like ours. And then that became normal. It became normalised, right? So now the things which are seen as deviant in those society are sort of based on what like colonizers said at that point rather than on their own traditions and own thoughts and stuff. So yeah, it's very much now it's like, oh, trans, you're deviant, and before it would have been like that would have been normal. Deviant behavior would have been completely different stuff, which we don't even know about now because there's so few records. But
Yeah. To give you an example, I was doing a research on Malaysian queer history before, and I came across this article about how, you know, Malaysia is known to be, you know, not the best place for trans or queer individuals to live in, but I was curious about before colonialism, what was it like in Malaysia, and I was really surprised to find out that there were actually like a lot of queer individuals, and even in the most Islamic state of Malaysia, living in the palace with the king and the harem, and then colonialism happened, and they brought in the laws and legislation. And then that was after colonialism, the British government made it legal to have gay marriage. And then it came too late for Malaysia because we got our independence from the UK before that happened. So that law still is in place, but rarely enforced, but will be enforced if needs be.
If you rock the boat. Sometimes it's one of those things where people are happy to ignore it, but it's like not in my backyard, right? So it's like, oh, that guy down the street, we know he likes to wear dresses every now and then, but as long as he only does it at night, we'll leave him be. But, you know, if he dares to go into the supermarket like that, then maybe we'll have a problem. And so, like, Ghana's having a big backlash at the moment because someone had the audacity to set up, like, a community group, like a community space for gay people. And now that that's opened, suddenly everyone's just like, excuse you, don't you know you're meant to be operating in the shadows secretly? So now those laws, which no one has even been thinking about for, like, the past 80 years or so, now they're like, oh, hang on, we can still use those because they're still in the books. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other? Oh, that's amazing. Colonialism. Can we talk? Colonialism is one of the massive factors of homophobia. Actually, before colonialism, a lot of countries. I mean, there's only 5 countries around in the Muslim within the Muslim diaspora or within the global majority diaspora who don't criminalize the LGBT community because Britain was not there. So think about it. So yeah, one of the reasons is like the effects and the leftovers of colonialism. One of the biggest examples that I can give you is India. India was an amazing haven for a lot of the LGBT community most importantly, the trans community, the Hijra community. The Hijra community in India, they were worshipped, and they were like, if a new baby came to life, a Hijra person has to come to give their blessings. And unfortunately, because of the Raj era, when Britain went there, it flipped over its head. The Hijra community now are considered a bad thing, a bad stain, because Britain brought with them their ideologies and how and patriarchy as well. And unfortunately, now the Hijra community are still fighting the ramifications of the colonialism. The LGBT law that in India as well, that's been unfortunately just lifted, was there because of colonialism. I am Moroccan, and the law or the penal code in Morocco was written during the French protectorate, during the independence. The French people, or the French government, so the French colonialism has written the penal code, and in it is explicitly 489, the penal code 489, to criminalize the LGBT community. You know what I mean? So now, instead of fighting just the culture change because there was no penal codes at the thing, now we have to actually fight actual law, which is hard to combat. So yeah, colonialism is a massive influence on homophobia in Africa, in Asia, around the world.
I think, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And then there's the issue that within the communities, once you have undergone your country being taken, all your resources being taken in the name of the mother country, and especially if you move to a place like Britain from an ex-colony, and then you find yourself marginalized or in a minority here, despite being the global majority. I think one of the general feelings of the communities are, well, we already have the race point, which we cannot escape. People will look at us and know, if they want to know, that we're not like that, we're not white. Why do you have to add upon that the fact that you are gay, the fact that you are trans? So I had the feeling that within the communities is not necessarily justifying the homophobia, but it's the intersectionality of the things. Like, there are things that pile up, and so when you come out to your family and they're like, at best they are concerned for you. And why are they concerned for you? Because they're like, oh, they're already looking down on you because you're not white. Why do you have to go and look for another reason, basically? So that is something that I've also noticed, and I'd like to think that their heart is in a good place, but then, of course, then it's still manifest with queerphobia and transphobia. Definitely. And all that kind of stuff.
Okay, where does self-tanning fit in with self-expression versus fantasizing darker skin?
Oh, I wonder if they mean probably fetishizing there, even though they've written fantasizing. That's a spicy one. I think it's difficult. There's no such thing as an objective idea of aesthetics and beauty. Like, our opinions are so shaped by what we grow up with, which is why beauty standards are different in different countries, that have different things on TV and everything like that. And it's a long, hard process to try and unlearn these things and find out what you actually like and what you actually need. And there's not an easy way of doing it. Really, you just need more examples. You need to have so much representation in your life. Like, if you can create your social media and stuff to show you all different kinds of bodies and faces, you can start to unlearn the idea that certain kind of looks are bad and unattractive. And then you can just figure out what you actually like rather than what you're being spoon-fed. But it's a long process, and you won't know personally for you if you want to have darker skin for whatever reason without doing the work. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Sauce.
Absolutely.
To be honest with you, I don't know. It is like I mean, we can talk about tanning, we can talk about lips fillers, we can talk about BBL, we can talk about all the features that are usually were reserved only for black women and darker skinned women and men and non-binary folks, but now have been appropriated by Western communities and white communities, and how a lot of historically a lot of women, especially, I'm sorry to speak specifically
Yeah.
about women, but that was the case. Like a lot of women from the black diaspora were asked to hide their bodies, were asked to hide their hair, were asked to like that the beauty standard were not them, is very white. And now like seeing this appropriation of those features who've been like demonized for a long time being the standard. It's really it's also like the double standard of like our societies these days. And is it a bad thing? I don't know.
To me it's ironically more than a race issue, it's a class issue, because the personal experience that I have about that is that I was raised by the white side of my family. And my mother personally always had a fascination for how quick I would tan in the sun, because, you know, North Africa, so we can. And she would show me off to her friends. Like, look at the line between, because I would get darker during the summer. She would want me to, exactly. Like, well, she would burn and I would tan.
That's what I'm tanning. Like my partner is white as hell, and he gets burned. I get tanned.
So there was that, and I said I remember stories of my grandmother, also white, born in the early 1900s, and she was a farmer, so she would literally work in the fields all year long. And one thing that they would do working in the fields would be, even in August, scorching sun in Italy, would be wearing long sleeves because it was vulgar to tan. If you were tan, you were working in the fields. And then you come to the jet set era of the 50s, and suddenly tanning becomes showing off because you can afford to go travel and to go on holiday. And so all of a sudden, showing that you have a tan, and probably the reason why people tan, I don't know, I don't, so you tell me why people do self-tanning, is to either show off that they've been on holiday and they have the money to go on holiday, or to pretend that they could, and so that you do the spray tanning, I don't know. So there's, to me, there's the not only appropriation of, that is something that, because I have white traits, I will not be treated as someone that has a darker skin tone anyway. But also, I will, because of how culture is now and the perception of I get tanned if I can afford holidays, it also gives the idea of being of a higher class status than they are. So there is an intersection issue to me with tanning in general, but that those are things that need to be considered. And then ultimately, again, I think it's then interesting, why do you think tanning is good? Like, do you like it because of
sexy,
just the look, or was there actually a reason about looking a bit exotic? That is an issue. Or is it an issue about making people think that you've gone to the Canary Islands for a week? That is another kind of issue. So I think, as most of these things, the reason why you want to do or know something matters. So I would inquire that with myself if I was thinking about tanning. What would be your advice to a white writer who would like to be more inclusive in their stories, but is having trouble finding people to talk to about respectful representation versus appropriation or tokenism?
Well, pay the people you are
trying to
talk with, and it's okay to tell stories that you actually know, because as soon as we start inventing stories and we thinking this is the right way to do it, we fall into those stereotypes. You know what I mean? And we repeat the same mistakes that other people and other writers have done. You know what I mean? I don't know what to say. This is a chicken and egg kind of question. You know? It's a catch-22. We want more representation and we want authentic representation, and it's you know what I mean. So I think just be mindful of the people you talk with, and what kind of resources you use.
I think there needs to be an acceptance eventually of white people understanding that they can't always lead. So the point of writing a story and being a writer is, from say, like, I think something very, very important is that our stories are told by us, and there's only so much even consultation that we can do if then the story, the merit, the money gets to a white writer, director, all those kind of things. So I think that eventually, in time, there needs to be a learning curve from white people to share that spotlight, share that role, because I feel that right now, even with the best of intentions of, I'm a white writer and I want to be able to understand more so that I can write those characters. But maybe in time that's not going to be your place to do that, especially because our voices very rarely are spoken by ourselves. So there's also a possibility that you don't need to.
But it depends what kind of stories you're writing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes, like I think what Bridgerton, for example, showed us that sometimes casting is really important. You know what I mean? And inclusive casting is sometimes important. You can be writing a story that has no either no gender, no ethnicity, nothing. But of course, within mind, so that's what I'm saying. It depends on which kind of stories are you talking. Are you talking just fairy tale stories, or you know what I mean, like adventure stories, or actually day-to-day life stories? That's when you have to ask yourself: is it the level of authenticity here? How high it should be? And I am against using black people and people of color and global majority people in workshops for free.
Oh yeah.
And just to make your story more authentic. The amount of messages and the amount of emails that we receive in Glitter Cymru for someone who thinks they can run a workshop for us because they have an interesting idea they want to work with us on is ridiculous. Honestly, and it's sometimes makes us feel like less than, and that we have like these people of our community that we can pick and pocket and just come here, you have nothing to do, just talk with this white person because they have an interesting story. It's really like infuriating.
Yeah, there's the
and disrespectful.
Yeah, there's a chicken and egg situation there as well, because like white people probably think, oh, you want us to learn, so teach us, but at the same time don't understand that that's emotional labor, that's practical labor. The amount of research and receipts that we need to present beyond our personal experience to be taken seriously. That is work, and that deserves to be compensated as much. But then if we want to be compensated, didn't you want me to learn? Like, shouldn't you just teach me because you want me to learn and make the world better for you? It's problematic to find a balance there, and I don't think necessarily that single thought is in every white person's mind. But that's why it needs to be balanced.
Have you got any tips for me as a white person to call out other white people on their racism? Yeah, just call them out. Call them out right away. Just say it's racist. Just do that. And then they will just realize, oh, that's actually an act of racism. Because sometimes people do it unconsciously. They think that it has nothing to do with racism. They think that it's just a fair joke to make, but in fact it is racism. How do you call out white people? Just say that it's racist. It is racist, and don't do it. Okay. Anything to add for you?
No notes.
No? Okay.
Just do it. No tips needed. Just do it. Honey, use that voice, use that power, use that privilege, and do it. And honestly, there's no tips. There's no best way or good way. Just do it. And it depends on the situation. Some situations need you to scream and shout and point fingers, and some situations it's about sitting down and pointing it out. And sometimes it's not even worth it. Because sometimes do you know that racism that is on your face, that you are shocked and like, oh my god, what is going on? You don't have to engage with that. Just leave, just be the bad man. I was like, I'm not gonna be in the same table with you, and just leave. Sometimes some energies are not worth wasting.
The one occasion in which I think it's always worth to, you have a voice, you're gonna be listened to more by white people because you share that whiteness. If that racism actually affects especially a person of color that is present, and rightfully, like they're like, I'm not gonna start a fight with white people, and they can say whatever, then it's useful for you to say something, because they will know that they have an ally on you.
Are there any really informative, well-written, educative websites or talks or YouTube videos that
Yeah.
can be shared with someone open to learn all about queer history and Black history and the movement of today. I am at the beginning of my journey.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're right, we sort of touched on that before, and we will put resources because trying to remember them off the top of your head is really, really hard. But I think that what we were really impressed by is that you thought to ask that question and be like, where can I go and find these things out? Because you're right, you should only be going to people who have set out to educate, to get educated. Like, it's, if you haven't picked to do that specifically, it's not how you want to spend your free time. Like, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
I feel like it's really important to self-educate, like you said. Go find out resources that are actively educating people on topic of racism or queerphobia or whatever. Your POC friends, they don't have the responsibility to teach you. It's kind of like you don't, like, POC people just don't go up to a white person and ask them, hey, can you tell me about the after effect of Nazism, is that word? Nazism?
Yeah, Nazism.
Nazism, with the effect of colonialism to all of the colonies of the British Empire before. So, yeah, just self-educate.
Yeah, like, they might know the answer, but it doesn't mean they want to be thinking about how to phrase it and tell you about it. Like, just all trying to live our lives, aren't we?
What is one thing that you would like us to take away from today? So the white people that are watching, hello.
Hi. I think the one thing that we can talk about is that terms are constantly changing. When we say that we are educating ourselves, we are educating ourselves constantly.
Yes.
We are always updating our knowledge. We have to always remind ourselves about our knowledge as well. Sometimes we forget and get comfortable, and sometimes we need to hold ourselves accountable and say ourselves, because we are also included in this accountability. And we need to also be aware of the spaces and what kind of information we've been fed and what kind of narratives we've been fed, and also be cautious for the well-being of ourselves, because sometimes being fed only one narrative can be harming for societies. I mean, a diverse community is a wealthy community, is a multicultural community, and it's a diverse community.
Yeah, it's a safer place for everyone. Something that I think is important, and I've recently come to understand myself. So hey, every day you learn something new. My grandmother apparently used to say that it's a bad thing to die because every day you learn something new. There is an understanding of innateness to privilege. I think that's why it goes under the radar for most white people, because there are certain things that you are born into as a white person, and you think that that's the default, even with the best intentions. At best you think, oh, of course, everybody gets basic respect for who they are, of course. Everybody should have a roof over their heads, of course, because that's been given to you, and that's been given to you because you were born with certain privileges, but that's not the default. It should be the default for everyone, those kind of basic needs answered, but it's not. And I think understanding and accepting to understand that, because there can be fragility about having all this world deconstructed, because as it stands it serves white people. It does. So it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of vulnerability to accept that by learning these things and understanding that you're not innately above someone else, that breaks down a lot of things that were promised to you by partially your parents, by your culture. So kudos to that if you manage to do that. But ultimately, just like Rahim said, a diverse culture, a diverse world is what empowers everyone to be the best version of themselves. So yeah, that would be my point. Thank you for understanding that there's privilege there. Thank you for wanting to take it down.
But also comment as well, what was the one thing that you got from this video?
Absolutely.
And if you want more.
And we're here for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.